Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's meeting. Thank you for submitting your questions. As all your questions are very similar in content, it would be helpful if one of you went first, and then if there is anything new to be added to the question, this can be contributed. Which of you would like to go first? Okay, that's great, you've got this. Please ask your question.
Hi everyone, thank you. So my question is, more than 80% of farmland worldwide is used to farm animals, yet provides only 18% of calories. The UK is no exception. In fact, if every country consumed like the UK, we would need another planet the size of Mercury to feed everyone. Globally, it's estimated that a transition towards a plant-based food system would allow the release of more than 3/4 of farmland back to nature, whilst providing the opportunity to repurpose land to absorb carbon. Other councils like Edinburgh, Norwich, Haywards Heath, Lambeth and Exmouth have endorsed the plant-based treaty and are implementing changes that are helping to normalise plant-based food and encourage people to eat more of them. Edinburgh is introducing carbon labelling in schools. Haywards Heath are creating test cases for plant-based food at events, and all of them have been involved in public education campaigns. I ask this council, are we serious about climate change? And are we ready to join these climate-leading councils? And if not, what is stopping us?
Thank you for posing those questions after that introduction. Do any of your colleagues that are with you today have anything further they'd like to add, i.e. ask?
Yeah, are we able to all ask our questions? They are slightly different than what Laura has just asked.
Ask.
Okay, thanks for having us, firstly. So last December, the UK signed a COP28 declaration pledging to incorporate food system impacts into climate action plans before COP30, but many city climate action plans do not address food consumption. Most food consumed in cities is imported, which means that their emissions are not included in net zero strategies, which look at things produced in the city. The Southampton City Council Climate Change Strategy, an action plan, could be bolder by calculating the city's consumption based on greenhouse gas emissions, setting targets to reduce them, and implementing a plant-based treaty action plan to deliver real reductions in food emissions. Edinburgh Council looked at their food consumption emissions and found that half came from meat consumption alone, so that's not including dairy and things like that. They started their plant-based treaty journey by conducting a detailed impact assessment which looked at how endorsing it would affect the city. As a result, they endorsed and developed a comprehensive plant-based treaty action plan. So my question is, would the council look at Edinburgh's impact assessment and action plan and refer it to the relevant scrutiny committee to conduct a similar assessment for Southampton, like what has happened in Bournemouth recently? Thank you.
Thank you. Are any of the others wanting to ask a question rather than perhaps rather lengthy introductory narratives? Because I do think that's what it would be easier if we just had the question. So are the other two members of the public got anything further to ask?
Thank you. I'll try and keep this shorter than my original narrative then. I'd like to inquire why Southampton has not moved towards more plant-based foods and what obstacles prevent it from endorsing the plant-based treaty.
Thank you for your succinctness. Sir, do you have another question?
Like Dom, I'll keep this to my shorter question. Please can Southampton Council join 30 cities worldwide by endorsing the plant-based treaty and committing to a plant-based action plan?
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your succinctness, and I think we got the points there. I'm now going to ask Councillor Savage, as Cabinet Member for Green City and Net Zero, would you please respond to the public questions that have been received?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming in today and asking the questions that you've given us. I'm the Cabinet Member responsible for Net Zero, and one of the things that strikes me was that we may well disagree on a few points, I suppose, but when I look at this all the time, I was on a conference yesterday looking at the journey towards net zero. And to be honest with you, the agricultural CO2 is really on the slope. You've seen the graphs of the slopes of different factors that are taking us towards net zero, and the agricultural carbon is only a small component compared to other factors which are really the burning agenda at the moment. For example, residential heating, need for insulation, and so on and so forth. And so our priority really is there. From what I've seen, it's a small element. I think as we move forward with improved education and so on, we need to be addressing that agenda. When I talk, you're all vegans, and so for most people, when I talk to people about this, what they've acknowledged in the last few years is that they are committed to substantially reducing the amount of meat in their diet, and are making certain active choices, but without going completely towards the direction that maybe the signed treaty that you're talking about. And I think that's an important thing. In my written answer, there's a lot of commentary really on where we're talking about sustainable food places, and there's a big scope there for education. It actually fits into our healthy foods agenda as well. Now, I would be really interested to look at, and I didn't get a chance yet to look at these, but the Edinburgh. Sorry, I think I've just missed it on my notes there. You have to remind me the Edinburgh Council. What was it called? The action plan that they've got there looking at it. You have to remind me. Sorry. Yes, but the action plan that they're looking at there, and you asked me to look at potentially an inquiry into responding to that. What I'd like to do, absolutely laser focused on the issue to do with climate change, absolutely. But I'm not sure we're quite ready for this right now. But I'd like to, if you're based in Southampton, resume conversations with you and get some really best advice on you, particularly on the educational side of things. And I'd like those conversations to take place in this building or wherever you want to, alongside me and my colleague, Councillor Finn, who've got responsibility for adult health, sits on the front bench there. So I think I'd like to continue this conversation. I'm not persuaded where we are right now is the right part of the journey, because we've got so much else to do. But thank you for coming in today, and hopefully we can resume this conversation. Is that okay? It's not really appropriate to come back on a further question, but if you want to come back at me when we do meet, please do so. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Savage. There is a facility to ask a supplementary question. I'm allowed to allow one supplementary question per original question, and I'll ask Councillor Savage to respond to those. However, I need to emphasise that supplementary questions should arise directly out of the original question or the reply. So I don't know if there are anything in that response that Councillor Savage gave that give rise to brief supplementary questions which Councillor Savage can then respond to. Thank you. Do I have any indication? Gentleman there in black. Thank you.
Hi. You mentioned the word vegan. I just want to ask a quick question. This is a question to each of the council members as individuals, as influential, responsible leaders in society. Would you agree with me that it's a moral obligation not to pay for animals to be harmed?
Okay, that seems to have varied a little bit from the original thing there, and as it's aimed at every councillor, I think they'll all need to go away and reflect on that, although Councillor Savage may well respond. If you could switch your mic off, were there any other supplementary questions? Gentleman in the grey suit.
Just to follow up on that, so my long form of my question talked more about the health implications of and benefits from plant-based diets and moving our society towards that. I fully appreciate your comments. So it's a super tanker of people in this city, and to change opinions takes time, even if it's better for them and generally expected to be that way. So I think looking into not just the net zero side here, but the other aspects and the other people who will be holding portfolios amongst us, or amongst you guys, would look at their portfolios and see how potentially plant-based, a movement towards plant-based or education that's educating their portfolio around a plant-based theme would help that. I would say also that, just to close off the plant-based treaty comment you make, that I don't think, my understanding is the treaty isn't about saying everybody needs to be vegan. It's about saying that it would be better if more people ate a vegan diet and we encouraged and enabled and educated across that. So I think that it's very clear, the plant-based treaty is not about turning people vegan. It's about moving that super tanker for many reasons, whether that be net zero, whether that be health or moral standings towards the right place. So please don't get too confused by the plant-based treaty being a vegan thing. It's more of a society thing.
Okay, that's part of the dialogue and exchange I think you probably need to have with Councillor Savage outside of that. I couldn't find a question there other than perhaps that whether this is something for all portfolio holders to consider. If there are no other supplementary questions, I can ask Councillor Savage to come back on those 2 points. Thank you.
I think the issue to do with the contribution that such a treaty and such an educational programme would have towards the health of the city is valid. And I think in my written answer, we talked about the role of the Health and Wellbeing Board and the various things that we can do as a council to support that educational process. I didn't mention in my formal answer before, but I know that a number of councils have their own catering facilities and they operate in a certain way. Southampton City Council, for a couple of years now, has such a small amount of money that is involved with any catering. We just don't do it. It's very, very limited and very, very rare occasions when there's anything that goes on in this council where we're actually catering for something. So it's so rare that we wouldn't really be involved with that, and we haven't got the involvement in schools. Edinburgh, of course, if you're in Scotland still retains an awful lot of the local control of schools. So it's a different thing, really, in that way. But I'd like to talk about education with you further, as I indicated. The other question around moral obligation, I think that given my view on it is, I've got a peculiar view on this. I've been a meat eater for most of my life. I care desperately about the environment, and I think it's a moral obligation, I think, for me to reduce my meat consumption, and that's my role in it. That's probably as far as I can go without boring you about my diet. I'm happy to meet and talk with you, and please email me and I'll arrange a meeting. Councillor John Savage, I'm on the council website. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you, Councillor Savage, and thank you, members of the public, for your questions.